Good morning and welcome to TentCraft. The first thing we think about as employees is visual management. Is right when we walk through the door, we see this nice beautiful mural that lets our employees know they've come to the right spot. One of the most foundational applications of visual management here at TentCraft is our visual boards. These were custom built by our IT team, pulling direct data out of Salesforce to show each operator in each work cell what they need to build each day. So looking at the print queue, the Durst is our large die sub printer. You can see what the demand is by day. You'll see a 0 next to Thursday, which is today. And that means with nothing in the queue, that means there's nothing to ship that day. So the first demand that they'll see is actually due to ship on Tuesday, so they're running a bit ahead of schedule. If you look at each line underneath that, you'll see the sales order, the work order, the quantity of the shipment, the hours to complete that, what the product is, the planned ship date, and then the drop dead ship date if there is one. If the operator is curious and wants to learn more, they can click directly on this link from the visual board and it'll take them directly into Salesforce so they can look at the entire job if necessary. Rarely is that needed, but the information exists at their fingertips if it is something that interests them. These visual boards are designed to walk through the entire production process, starting in print with our different print techniques, and then out into the fabrication floor. You'll see the cut queue is the beginning of the sewing fabrication process. Here they can see how many hours that they have to complete by a given day. You'll notice the 2-day Monday, it says 4.75 available of 7.25. That means on Monday 7.25 hours of work, but only have 4.75 hours available to them. So if you were to trace back through the visual boards, you would find those jobs in the print queues waiting for them. Another indicator they have is that as you scroll through their job queues, anything they don't have available to them is grayed out, so they quickly know what they have and what is available and what is not available to them. As they work through these orders, in this particular case, these gray jobs will start to bump to the top, and is a nice visual cue for the supervisor to talk to the print group and see where this particular job is and when they might expect to receive it. These visual boards exist, as I mentioned, for every group in production. Our roofs, walls, accessory cells, even into metal fabrication, final inspection, in our shipping group. So these boards work to plan the whole factory. Every morning, the production leadership team meets to discuss any issues that might have come up and any capacity concerns they might have. One thing I touched on earlier and worth highlighting again is that it has these hours each day. So each operator or each supervisor knows what their available capacity is each day and can easily identify where we might be overloaded and have to work with scheduling to move out a job. These are a great tool for us and fully runs our factory. So as we continue into the production area, we'll take a look at what these visual boards used to look like. When we first started out, our visual boards were quite literally boards with job sheets printed out on them. Much of the same information that you just saw, but it was in paper form. They had different dots that meant different things. It was in different stages of production. They knew if art was approved or if it needed additional client information. They were arranged vertically by day with ship dates, and this was how they mapped the production schedule. The beauty of this is being vertical and visual. The problem is that it's purely manual. Our production supervisor spent nearly all of his day running back and forth from the scheduling department to the production floor to figure out which jobs needed to move, if there was a rush added or a delay or a new job came in. So while very effective, very hard to maintain, and adding technology to this process really allowed us to seamlessly integrate that information and reduce the manual travel and need for additional conversations.
Another tool we use are customizable dashboards straight out of Salesforce. So we're looking here at the fabrication department dashboard, and on here you can see the fab hours completed so far this day. So this report is able to be refreshed by the minute and gives you an up-to-date status of how production is flowing on that given day. You can also see the planned fab hours by ship date. Here we can tell how many hours in aggregate the fabrication department needs to produce to satisfy the shipments that are scheduled to go out that day.
We use these dashboards on a company basis as well. Every morning, the entire company gets together to talk about some critical and key numbers. Those numbers for us are total shipped relative to goal, what % of the month we are complete, what we sold yesterday, where our backlog sits, cost of poor quality, which is always a critical number for us, and then what we shipped the previous day. This allows everybody in the company to stay up to date on how we're doing, what we're doing, and what we're looking at for the month. We continue our tour down into the metal fab area. One of the purest and most simplest forms of visual management is simply a bin system. In our assembly cells, they have carts of parts that they need to build each frame. As one cart is empty, it is simply wheeled to the machining cell to be refilled. We don't need any fancy cards, we don't need MRP triggers. It's a very simple empty bin, fill bin. This allows our machinists to know in real time what they need to make. We have the same for our parts that are done on lathe and on our 5-axis machine. Operators from the assembly will empty the bin, they will drop it off, and the operators can look at each part, look at the part number, know the bin quantity, and know what they need to prioritize in their day. We'll continue by walking back towards our final inspection area. Here again is a very simple visual cue. As products are finished from our sewing fabrication, they are put onto the table for final inspection, along with the job sheets. So our final inspection operators have all the information they need to know to look at the sales order, when it's to ship, where it's to ship, and what pieces are required to complete the order. We've set up these flow lanes for accessories, for walls, and for roofs. When things are flowing, you'll see that the turnover on this table is many times per day. A roof gets put on the table, it gets pulled off the table and married up with the frame and off into shipping. Another simple use we have of these visual indicators is when things get packaged up and ready to be put on a truck, shipped to the customers. Here again, we utilize these flow lane concepts. You'll see a lot of boxes here waiting to go, and you'll also notice the red lines on either side of them. If it's in the red lane, that means it's packaged, but it's waiting on additional pieces needed to complete the shipment. Once a shipment is completed in its entirety, it's put into the green lane. The shipping supervisor then knows he has a complete shipment that he can pull, palletize, and get ready for to be moved out the door. Next, I'll take you back into our common space where we can show you some simple visual things we do to try to help keep people aligned. We maintain a calendar of production employees' vacation days. So by looking here, you can see when each person is planned to be out. Most of our production employees have an email address but don't have immediate access to a computer because they don't need to use it on a day-to-day basis. So while Outlook is the preferred method for many of us in the office, for production, if they have time off requests, they simply put it on the board. For myself, I can come down and take a look, quickly see who's going to be out, when they're going to be out, and if we need to think about flexing people into different work areas. This is our employee common space, commonly referred to as the club. I mentioned the morning huddle earlier. This is where we normally have the meeting every morning, but due to the coronavirus, we have decided to move it out into the production floor to accommodate social distancing. So normally when it's in here, we have the agenda on the board, and this is what we do every morning. It begins at 8:58 promptly. The person who is responsible for running the huddle has to come up with walk-in music. Usually they get down 5 minutes early, pick their favorite song or movie clip, and allow people to walk into that. We walk through critical numbers, do department report outs. So we have a report out from the sales department, our project management group, art group, print, sewing fab, metal fab, final inspection and shipping. Next, we talk about kitchen cleaning. Everybody gets a day, or a week rather, where they are responsible for cleaning some of the common spaces. So and every day we report out on whether or not that happened. This creates a little bit of social pressure to make sure people are taking care of the spaces that we inhabit. Next, we talk about our Make It Better videos. Any kudos for anybody pitching in, helping out, special notes. Next, we spin the wheel, which randomly selects who will lead the huddle the next day, and finally end with our Make It Better clap out. Here's an example of what our huddle wheel looks like. So as you're seeing all these pictures indexed through, these are all managers who are responsible for leading the huddle at one point or another. Somebody is picked, and then an anagram is created of the letters that make up their name. From that, the IT team has programmed in to go search and find a GIF of what their anagram is. This has all been capped to make sure it's G-rated and keeps us fun and a little weird. One other interesting thing we do here is every employee upon their start does a DISC assessment. Some of you may be familiar with it. It's this pretty standard personality type test similar to Myers-Briggs. And then we put their picture on this big wheel to see kind of how they are, what their personality type is. We use this information quite a bit as we work across groups and with people we don't work with every day. It's important to know how they like to be approached, how they like to work. So if someone who is a dominant D personality needs to work with someone more in the S category, they should know that they don't come at them hard charging. They should be more patient, tactful, because that is how these people typically like to operate. So it's important for all of us to know more about ourselves and more about our coworkers so that we can be effective in our communication. So finally, we'll head upstairs and we'll take a look at another form of vertical visual management for our intern program. We brought in 6 interns to work on product development, and instead of integrating them fully into a lot of our systems, we've designed a very simple management system in which each of them reports out on Monday morning of the most important things they're doing that week, and then report on what they got done the previous week. What this allows us to do is have them very discreetly talk about what the most important thing is. The order here is important. So if in describing their task for the week, some of us don't agree, we can physically take that off and say, no, this one's more important. I think you need to do that one first. This allows them to keep on track, make sure that they're doing the most important things, the things that we need them to focus on. There's also a parking lot for any items that aren't immediately need to be worked on, but things to keep in mind.